Welcome back to 7th Grade Mustache. On today's episode, we'll be speaking about new grandmas. I had a conversation with a young mother recently. She was in the process of packing up and moving back to her native Detroit, Michigan. I asked her if she enjoyed her stay in Atlanta. She said she had expected more help from the extended community that she perceived to be part of the Atlanta black culture. She said new grandmas would rather run in the streets than spend time with their grandchildren. The term me generation has persisted over the decades and is connected to baby boomers. The 1970s was also an era of rising unemployment amongst the young, continuing erosion of faith in conventional social institutions, and political and ideological upheavals. The young people of the 70s and 80s were partying to cocaine and disco, and then cocaine and crack cocaine, and Jerry Curl R&B and new wave music. They then were part of an experiment that was being conducted without their consent by the U.S. government. They were bringing crack cocaine into the black community, and this was done to destroy the black family. And so what happened is you saw what began in the 70s with this welfare state and the social services working to get the man out of the home. You saw this illustrated in a movie called Claudine. But if you're black, you saw this in your neighborhoods or people that you knew it was happening to them. So that continued, and the war on drugs saw a lot of those fathers that were separated from their children incarcerated. And so what you had was an extended family of people in the community helping to raise children. This is a tradition in the black community that goes back for centuries and centuries, thousands of years. The saying that it takes a village to raise a child, well, that comes from Africa. So here's the thing. The problem with this situation is if you have a village raising a child, that's a support system. But when you remove that support system because the villagers have become so self-indulgent and so self-important because they're listening to music that is basically a lot of whining and complaining, saying me, why me? And then they're on these drugs that isolate them from the rest of their family because they know these drugs are wrong, but they want to do these drugs because me, it makes me feel good. And so they start to splinter off and become this entire subculture of people that are separated from their families. And you see this when you see the guy that's too old to be in the club hitting on young women. Among guys, you never want to be the old dude in the club. In a club full of young-ass people in their 20s and early 30s, you ain't got no business up in there. Because that's a form of shame and embarrassment if you have respect for yourself. So the problem with all this is that there's so many mechanisms going on at the same time that people think this is all a surface problem, but it is not, because you have COINTELPRO, you have MKUltra, you have the war on drugs and the proliferation of drugs into the black community. You have all these things that are going on, and now we come to find out that USAID had parts in some of these things. And they're doing these in foreign countries to people because they've learned how to perfect this by using the black population. And they extrapolate that from the black population to the poor white population and middle-class white population with the pill mills and these drugs, these opiates that have wrecked these people's communities. So then these people have children because they're just, the natural reflex, they're going to get together and procreate. And so they have kids who don't want to be any part of this shitty upbringing, or they want to better themselves. So they leave their town and they go to another place. They go to a big city. And now the internet is going full steam ahead, and social media and Web 3.0, Web 3, and all these rug pulls that are going on that people can make money off of with NFTs and shit coins. And so these influencers have very little experience with the entire American culture and prefer to make their grand analyses based on what people know in gentrified parts of cities like Atlanta, Chicago, New York, Miami, Los Angeles. We're talking about things that really don't matter, like what you had for brunch last weekend. So the type of person that these influencers come across frequently, or these media companies come across frequently, are interns. And some of them are like interns of these magazines, and they write these lofty articles, right? It ends up being a stuffed shirt because the media industry is high status, at least in the early stages. Very low pay in a very expensive city. And it attracts a lot of rich kids. Entitled, arrogant, spoiled. These are all signature traits of a person that is seeking self-edification and instant gratification. They are seeking status, so they copy the behaviors of people that they think are wealthy and wise. Yet they are merely copying the behavior patterns of rich men's children and their wannabe friends.
And then they get devoured by New York, Chicago, and LA. But that's a whole nother conversation.
They belong to the streets at that point.
Yeah, hold it. Here's the problem with you doing, Roscoe. You name so many different things.
I know.
But no, that's not what I mean in that context. This is something that me and you spoke about privately that I think is relevant to this conversation. All the things that you named, everything from drugs, single parenthood, human services, and all that shit, attacked the black community, attacked America, but attacked the black community.
Cocaines and Jerry curls don't go together.
What the fuck do you talk? Yes, they do. Cocaine and Jerry curls were fucking hand in hand in '86, but
that's what I'm saying. Cocaines and Jerry curls together were a horrible idea. But go ahead.
All those things happened to our community, but it didn't kill us the way that last part, the way that social media has disrupted the family is way more than any of those other things put together. And I know people ain't gonna believe you because all that shit was a travesty. All that shit was tragic. The drug trade, cocaine, crack, heroin, all that shit is fuck with the family, but it didn't kill the family. Again, I'm not trying to get personal because me and you both got personal lives outside of this, but I'm gonna give an example. My grandmother had my mother early. My great-grandmother and my auntie took my mother and raised her. And the whole idea was for you to raise your child until you became mature, then you came back and got your child. Now, me and you know that didn't happen in every household. So when my mom turned 12, she moved in with my grandmother. They couldn't get along. My mom went back.
You know what's crazy what you just said, though? You basically said you got some kids on layaway.
Okay, so like I said, I'm not trying to talk about our actual household.
I know.
No.
Just change the names to protect the innocent.
There was a chick I had a crush on at one point.
Well, stop. Before you get to that, finish the story about how you said your grand auntie raised your mother and the whole kids on layaway bullshit.
It's not bullshit. You know it to be true.
That's some bullshit. That's some bullshit for the person that's raising somebody's kids.
I don't want to say bullshit because the person.
That's bullshit, no.
No. Because the person raises the kids, we love that person. We love grandma. But the reason we're having this conversation, they don't make grandmas like that anymore. Do you understand? That's why we're here.
Okay, but think about your great aunt. Grandmas like that are people that were alive in the 50s and the 60s.
Okay, here's a problem with the conversation you're about to have. I'm not talking about my great-great aunt. I'm not talking about my Aunt Essie. I'm talking about my auntie, which was my mom's aunt. My auntie is my mom's aunt. So my auntie is only 3 or 4 years older than my grandmother. But she was willing to take my mother in and take care of my mother. That's why like you said, the activity is bullshit. That you're putting your responsibility on somebody else. That's the bullshit part that you're describing. And when I said I had a crush on a chick, I'm still going down that same story. So there was a chick that I kind of had a crush on. I'm digging her, but I'm actually dating her friend. And I didn't try to date her friend; it just happened. And so when she realized that I was digging that chick, you know what she tried to throw her under the bus. Her mom is raising her son. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever, nigga, shit. I get it. You kept your son and your daughter, but you're really shitty because. And so whenever this person would come up, she would be like, she didn't have her son. So the point she's trying to make was she had a kid in high school, her mom, and like I said, the kids on layaway is what this is about. So so the idea was I'm 14, 15, 16, had a kid, 17. So your parents are supposed to raise your kid till you get done with college or whatever, or you kind of mature, and then you come back and get your kid. Kid might be 6, 7. And it might be a little difficult, but that happened a lot back in the day. But more and more, these people ain't going back to get their kid, or the kid is 13, 14 by the time they figure their life out. They like with the situation with my grandmother and my mother, they couldn't get along. My mother was raised in the country of Tennessee. My grandmother lived in New York, Yonkers. My mom goes to visit my grandmother. She's 12 now. She has 2 siblings, my uncles. So it's like, okay, you watch your brothers, this, that, and other. So my mom is visiting my grandmother in New York. My grandmother's still being an asshole towards my mom catches the bus and runs into somebody from Tennessee who's the bus driver. And you know what the bus
In New
driver
York?
asked? Yeah, in New York. And you know
What
you know
are
what?
the fucking odds?
Do you know what the bus driver asked my mom? How's your father doing? You know, he ain't been out here in a while.
He didn't even know her?
Yes, he knew her. He knew of her.
Did your mother tell him who she was?
My mother looks like her father. So, you haven't heard the part of the story yet. My mom did not know that her father went and stayed with her mother in New York for a while. My grandparents weren't married. My grandmother had my mother when she was 16. But she didn't realize that at some point in time that my grandfather and my grandmother tried to make it work. And it didn't work. And so he went back to Tennessee. Oh boy knew that. My mom didn't know that. So that was part of the reason my mom, when she goes back and talks to my grandmother says some things she didn't like. She's like, you know what? I'm better off in Tennessee. So she's 12, 13. She goes back to Tennessee. The point being is that at some point back then, the grandparents knew that this child, which when I'm saying child, I mean the parent of the child, wasn't mature enough to do it. So I'm going to look after your kid for a while. You go ahead and get a job. You experience life and you figure some shit out. And you come back and get them when you graduate college, high school. You get you a career or whatever. Or you send money back and then I finish raising them or whatever. But it was an agreement. Now, with these new grandmas, and we just say grandmas, but grandpas too, niggas. These motherfuckers are so busy trying to be the Kardashians. That's why I said reality shows were way more potent in destroying the black and poor families of America than all the drugs combined, because they gave unreasonable expectations. Like rap music was in on it because like you mentioned, because when you mention rap music, it's more about the drugs and the lifestyle, the puffy parties and shit like that. And like I said, you only can party so much. Most people get partied out. But there are some people that leave and go to Hollywood and they want to be, and that's why what you said was so deep when you were talking about a lot of these kids or a lot of these guys getting intern jobs at record labels or at TV stations and shit like that. Niggas and bitches. You know, they go to Hollywood, they want to get actors, they want to get discovered, they want to whatever, or they want to rap, you know, whatever it is. But and a lot of times that's part of the party lifestyle. You know, the reason these girls want to be strippers is they see the stripper lifestyle. A stripper in Omaha, Nebraska ain't making the money that a stripper in Miami
or
makes.
Vegas. But listen. Sidebar. So it was recently discovered that USAID is paying rappers from different countries to make songs that are against the government.
The government of that nation?
Of that nation.
Oh, that's some CIA
subversive
bullshit. Yeah.
Right. And then Dua Lipa, the singer, received an award by an organization that is backed by USAID because it was against some of the things that she's from Albania. So like the Albanian government was doing to like, you know, some of its women or some of its citizens. So, but if you go back 30 years, who's to say that some NGO that was under another umbrella corporation approached Eric Wright and told him, hey, you're making good music. This dope man stuff is good. Here's some money. Eric Wright's Eazy-E, y'all.
Yeah. There's a certain race of people you're not allowed to talk about. But I'm going to just
We're going to talk about all the motherfuckers on this show.
Well, there's a rap group called Third Base, and they call old boy Elroy Cohn. And you know who that guy is. But I hate when black people try to give their oppressors...
You can say that name. It's Lyra Cohen.
Yeah, I know
the guy
that.
who eventually got control over Def Jam, Island Records.
Yep, and then he left. Now he's with YouTube. Fucking everybody out their money on that. Like I said, I'm saying these people by their name. For Jerry Heller was the individual who helped run NWA into the ground. So without saying who they are, you should know who they are. But the point I'm making, so this guy was talking about Kanye, and he was like, you know, I don't like all the things Kanye said, but it's funny. He said, I think Kanye was trying to get certain people's attention by saying what he said about that certain race of people. And the thing is, the crazy part is, Leor Cohn responds to Kanye out of nowhere. You must remember Kanye did not address this guy, but all the stuff he's been doing over the past 3 or 4 years, all of a sudden, Leor puts out a statement about Kanye alienating a certain group of people and this, that, and other. Then Kanye goes in there and talks about him and says, like, you're not rich enough to address me. But the fact of the matter is, how come if I say one thing about your people, it's a problem, but you are putting out music and constantly denigrating my people? And he says it very eloquently. And he also says that you're not rich enough to talk to me. You do realize that. And so the black guy that is doing the little video, he's like, I think that's kind of petty. Like, again, you're missing the point. Kanye is explaining to you that I'm talking about how come it's okay for you to kill my people, talk about the worst part of my people, but if I mention anything about your people, I get blackballed and I'm called an anti-something or other, right? But then I see now the reason I have that problem because, like I said, this black guy was bootlicking the Leora Cohn, and then he also plays the video from the Breakfast Club, and he said, "Oh, I like his honesty." I'm like, his honesty? he wasn't being honest. He thinks you're trash. He's not being honest. It's the clip where Angela Yee asked him about what's more important, talent or message, and he says talent, and then Charlamagne's like, "Hey, that's wrong. What about this?" He's like, "I just answered that question. You're not listening." Disrespected Charlamagne on his own show, but it's like, look, yeah, I don't mind if I got to kill a bunch of Negroes or a bunch of dudes, black people die because of my music. I don't mind. And so, flip the script.
The problem is that how this ties to this conversation is what that creates.
Yes.
And that creates a culture, a group of people that have self-loathing.
That are negatively impacted. You think that using drugs are cool. Think that self-medicating is the way to go. Think that partying lifestyle in the byproduct, which you said is nature. Like, hey, people are going to have sex if they're kicking it, but not caring about the product of their sex, but still wanting to live that lifestyle and kick it. And here's it. But like I said, my biggest beef with that is that black guy that produced the video was still kissing Leora's ass. And I'm like, God damn, do you hear what you're saying? Now, on the flip side, there was a white guy produced a similar video about Kanye, and he's like, people don't realize Kanye, that Adidas froze Kanye's money because he said these statements, and now he went from having $2 billion to $500 million. He said, but that was 2.5 years ago. People don't realize Kanye's a billionaire now, but he did it his own way. And now he doesn't have to worry about he's not beholden to anyone. He can say whatever he wants. Now, I get it. Sometimes Kanye can be whatever, but the fact of the matter is he earned back $1 billion. He was just over in China, did a concert and shut this town down and donated the money to. So he's doing his thing, but that's not the image that they're getting. In fact, that when you got a black guy who actually did it on his own, everybody wants to tear him down, said he's saying the craziest shit. Bottom line is this, but Leora Cohn has done more damage to our community than somebody else, but we idolize him? Yeah, that's that bullshit. Look, back to putting the kids on layaway. So your partying lifestyle, you got fast, you produced some children, you were doing cocaine, you was kicking it. Those are still your kids, but then, like I said, now that we got these new grandmas and grandpas, who's going to raise these kids? Like I said, this is much worse on our people. When I say our people, I mean poor Americans. This is much worse on them because back in the day, you had grandma and grandpa like, hey, we'll pick up the slack. We got this. And, you get your life together, you figure shit out. But now people ain't figuring shit out. Look, even the rappers themselves had a bunch of kids and, you know what, I'm taking care of my kids, I'm putting them through college. That's why those reality shows, when these kids don't connect with their parents, or grown-up hip-hop. I really never watched the show, but I saw an episode recently, and I guess it's an old show, but I saw an episode recently with Peppa's daughter on there from Salt and Pepper, and I'm like, Peppa's still trying to kick it. Like, God damn. Like, and I get it. I don't know how old this episode is, but you can see this girl, like, I'm trying to have a heart-to-heart with my mom, and she's more worried about kicking it at the party, at the birthday party. I'm like, that's that shit right there. That's literally
what people are addressing is how these drugs, crack cocaine in particular, have mutated the African genetic code. And so what you have is a child, a person that grows up with a warped physiology, and that becomes an adapted ideology that is kind of made boilerplate for that environment, because you got to be a mutant to act like that, to enjoy that.
Well, it
So
was
the
like I
value
said.
systems are what I'm talking about here,
Yeah, yeah.
because there's been a
But
mutation of these value systems. So you had these people who grew up with a solid foundation, and then they have kids because they're partying, and then they dump those kids off on the
on somebody,
grandparent,
on somebody.
or maybe the grandparent passes away and then the kid goes back to the mother, and then you have the mother who's still acting like a
Crazy.
child in this
The
state of
child.
perpetual adolescence, because the music they're listening to keeps them in a state of perpetual adolescence. You have an entire class of people that are the perfect victims for any type of social experiment. And so
Social
what's
construct.
happening there is that you have these people who end up in their late 30s and 40s still acting like children, and their kids are starting to have babies, and now they're grandparents, and they don't want to accept the fact that they have to move to the next station of their life experience and stop acting like a fucking child. So
Well,
then
here's a
what you
stuff for the drug.
have is this person still behaving like a child, but they're a fucking grandparent now. And so that's how you get this woman that I was talking to the other
Yeah.
day that says these new grandmas would rather be out here running the streets when they should be at home building foundations for the future. So
Well,
the
okay.
problem
Hold
with all of this, let me start by just saying you have a woman like Kris Jenner, who is
Mm-hmm.
the mother of Kim Kardashian and the former
Khloe
wife, the
Kardashian.
ex-wife of Bruce Jenner. And so this woman, who's a ball worshipping
Armenian.
witch, whored out
Armenian.
her daughters, whored out her daughter, and made a sex videotape with Ray J because she knew it was a great idea. That was the mother's idea.
Ray J admits that now. You know that, right? Like,
Yeah.
he
But
has
what I'm
videos out.
telling you is that you have these fucked up ass people from this me generation still chasing hype. So then what you have is these young girls that are teenagers and preteens see Kim Kardashian and think, oh yeah, that's the path to success. Look at her. She's in the White House standing next to the president in the Oval Office.
Oh, you left out a part.
This
You left
is
out a part.
what these little girls want to be until they are shown the way.
Have you seen Kim Kardashian when she's with Northwest, the daughter? You know, the daughter is, I guess she's close to 11, 12, maybe teenager now. I'm not sure. But whenever you see them together, there's sometimes a weird disconnect. Like the child has more sense than the mother. Like if the interactions are labored at best, and it's crazy because no matter how shitty Kris Jenner was, she still raised her daughters. I'm not saying she did it right or wrong. She still was present in their life. There's a disconnect between Northwest and Kim Kardashian that's just is odd. And again, I don't watch it. I don't watch them enough to see every interaction. I'm just saying that I see a weirdness there. I see a laboredness there. I'm pretty sure she probably got a nanny or something. The kid probably doesn't relate to her, whatever. Or she might be closer to her dad, as crazy as that sounds. Whatever. But the point is that when you have these new grandmas, and we just said grandmas because at the time when you had this conversation, we were talking about a woman.
No, but let's focus on women, because the reason why I'm focusing on women is because everything falls back on women.
Yeah.
When the man is not there to do his job, who picks up the slack? The woman does. The woman, the grandmother. Really, see, that's why you're missing something here that I'm communicating. The grandmothers are the stopgap between the streets and that child. So
Look.
what I'm trying to say here, what I am saying here, is that when you take the grandma's value system out of the situation, oh boy, you are in for a world of pain.
Well, hold it. Let's go back to growing up hip hop. The frustrating part is that when you see I got stepkids, and I've dealt with these motherfuckers. I love them, but so many times.
How many times you gonna say, man, fuck them kids?
Fuck them.
Keep it real. Keep it 100% real. There are times when you was like, man, fuck them kids.
See, you've known me too long. You know that's not even in me. But you know it. Also, you know my patience once it's gone. I'm like, nah, we don't visit this no more. I'm done. I can walk away from any situation. That's it. That's what makes, whether it's the Gemini in us or whatever it is. Me and you can walk away from any situation. Now, when I'm in it, you got all of me. But the second that I think I'm being exploited, nah, I'm out. But what about that? Hey, you had Ren, you don't have Ren no more. It's just, I don't ever say fuck them kids behind their back. I say it to their face.
No. You know what I'm saying? But fuck them kids, yes, that's in there.
But the situation is this: it's really frustrating when you nowadays. All this shit I've endured with my kids and CPS and the foster care system and everything else. So when I'm watching this show and you see this child, who's not a child, she's probably 23 or whatever, trying to communicate with her mother that there is that her mom is more worried about partying than having a heart-to-heart or fixing something or whatever. That shit right there fucks with me. Not like I'm not crying. No, I mean like, goddamn, like, this child is trying to reach out to you. And she clearly wants some kind of understanding from you or something, and yeah, you too busy trying to be fly, wrinkled as fuck, what I'm saying, wrinkled pussy, fucking plastic surgery and shit. You're not you're trying to party with 23-year-olds, and Peppa got to be 58 now. Let's say 50 or maybe 60, whatever she is. And so that's the issue, is that you're competing with your daughter for space. Now, we've talked about this in past podcasts because, like, I've dated a lot of women that left the house early. I'm like, why'd you leave early? Well, me and my mom. I'm like, y'all were competing. You were competing for the same space. And in that situation, it's usually the mom's fault. Like, hey, why are you competing with your daughter for looks and likes and attention?
Right.
Or
see, what you have in this situation is a mother that doesn't want to be a parent. And then that person becomes
well, but here's the only problem with the grandparent thing. Now, the first two grandkids, they might not do shit with, but the third and fourth, after whatever, something happens to them. Now that third or fourth or fifth grandchild, they love, but they fucked off the first two or three. Like that shit right there fucks with people. I knew a chick. I'm gonna give a dynamic. I knew a chick. She was adopted. But she was adopted by her, it wasn't her grandmother, like her aunt or something, right? But then her mom had other kids, but didn't put them up for adoption. Now, she was adopted by a family member, but that still fucks with you. When you sit there like, okay, so you didn't keep me, but you kept them. We're 8 years apart, and I still got to see y'all motherfuckers every day. Because, that's the shit we're talking about. So so back then, those situations, like Roscoe was telling you, is because of drugs. And even when it comes to drugs, this is you're gonna laugh when I say this. I think crack was worse than heroin, because the DC. It was funny because I saw this interview with this drug dealer, and the crack explosion had happened in New York already, but they were still using heroin in DC. And so I had told you the story where his uncle had a warehouse full of heroin that they couldn't sell. But he had visited D.C. and they're still using heroin, so he started selling heroin. But the crazy part was, you saw it later on with crack. But the thing about heroin, people still had jobs. Motherfuckers would use heroin, get high on the weekend, and still go to work during the week.
Like a functioning alcoholic.
Yeah, like a function, exactly. And you didn't hear, as crazy as it sounds, people die from overdosing on heroin. That's bad.
But when you're not a functioning alcoholic, you're what we used to call winos.
Yeah. The funniest thing about winos is a wino could drink bourbon, a wino could drink everything. But a wino drinks wine, he falls apart. That's the crazy. Like, he could drink Everclear. A wino will not get drunk. But if a wino drinks wine, you motherfucker. It's crazy. But the point I'm making about the heroin, the crazy part, now, there was the deaths, the bad cut heroin. But people on heroin were still functioning as parents and was still going to work and stuff like that. Now, later on, after crack had kind of hit his peak and came down, you saw a lot of people. I don't want to say this lady's name but the councilwoman that helped us that time, she was big into crack. You know, she's successful lawyer.
Which one are you talking about?
The time we had a situation at the car show, there was a councilwoman that helped us.
She's like chocolate, dark skin complexion.
Yeah.
First name starts with a B.
Yeah.
Really?
Councilwoman, wink, wink. Yes.
Lived in Raven Oaks.
Yes.
Oh no! Are you serious?
But she lawyer and everything. So.
Oh man.
No, it's not all man because she always did her job. She's worked for the railroad. She's worked with a lot of companies.
No man, I don't like hearing that shit at all, dog. Like,
Hold it. She's fine. Her husband got money. She got money. They're fine. But this is also a conversation that again we had in private. Drugs ain't a problem till you run out of money. That's what people never want to understand.
That sounds like that motherfucker that's on JRE, that Dr. Carl Hart. That's always like, you can do heroin successfully and you'll be just fine. I'm like, nigga, shut that stupid shit up.
But okay, drugs. Okay, so let's talk about psyche. One of the things I figured out when I was 16 or 17 about drugs, a lot of people had mental health issues. A lot of people had depression. And I saw this and I didn't understand it. A little bit later on when I got to college, I really understood it better. People are depressed. Not everybody's depressed, but I'm saying there are people that have mental health issues, depression, anxiety, so on and so forth. And when your money's bad, you're trying to figure life out. We're in the dorm. And what happens is they think of, what's the last time I felt good? I was partying. And so what happens is these people attribute their good feeling to the drugs and not to the people they were around, not to the camaraderie, not to the occasion. But they're like, when's the last time I felt good? I was on drugs. No, the last time you felt good, you were around your best friend, your bud, your sis. You were, there's a situation involved, but they eliminate the situation and attribute their success and their good feeling, their euphoria to the drugs. And so they self-medicate and they jump on whatever drug, and not realizing the reason you had a good time is not because of that drug. The drug was just part of it. And so they're trying to recreate that feeling because they feel bad. Instead of recognizing like, okay, I was in a healthy situation. I just got a job. We were celebrating somebody's birthday, whatever. And so I think that was a big problem with the drugs, is that people gave drugs way more power than they really had. And then after that, you're using it. Now you're addicted. Your body craves it because the endorphins, your brain can't produce some endorphins without it and all the kinds of other bullshit. But that was the whole thing, is that people got hooked on a lifestyle. And then that lifestyle, they run out of money. That shit's a problem. So either you start selling drugs or you start stealing to get the drugs or whatever. And that, that was a big part of the whole crack craze and heroin, all that kind of shit. But
how did you know that councilwoman was using? Was it somebody in the street told you that shit they sold to her before?
Yeah. Mm. And also, I knew somebody that partied with her. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You gotta say, don't name anybody.
Hold it. I'm trying to recall who the person was. It's not coming.
It doesn't matter. We're not gonna talk about it right now.
Yeah. But the bottom line is that what I was saying is that when you have money, then you can continue to use and you learn how to adjust. But when the money runs out, then all of a sudden the depression, all the stuff that comes with it, you're trying to treat it with cocaine. You're trying to treat it with whatever fancy drug, meth, whatever. And that's another thing. Here's how naive I am.
You want to drink gasoline to get rid of a sore throat.
Well, it has ethanol in it. You know what I'm saying? Like, really? That's what we're doing now? And so, but like I said, the reason we're talking about this is because of the new grandmas. So you got women that, how about this? This is a terrible thing to say, but you knew people that had bad parents that turned out great. You knew people that had good parents that turned out bad. But there were people that were crackheads that were good parents, that provided for their children, that made sure their kids had everything they needed. It's just they smoked crack and it wasn't nobody's business. So you have those extremes, and like I said, that's the problem with this whole new grandma syndrome is that you don't have that cornerstone of the family who, okay, look, I'm gonna hold it down. I'll find a way to make it. Even when we were kids, you always read about these families. It was 17 children. Somebody had to take care of them.
Who the fuck is gonna feed all those people?
But they did it though. That's that's the whole point. Mom and dad did it. Then look, you always hear about it. It was 13 of them, but you don't hear about it'd be one or two that became musicians and got into the cocaine. Yeah, well, yeah, Leroy became a musician. He played jazz and but like you said, without with these new grandmas, that's what's killing.
You know what? I'm gonna say some crazy shit. I wonder if the same genes that allowed a woman to have all those babies is the same gene that a woman needs to go into porn and be successful. I don't know. Just a thought. Sidebar. Whatever. Keep going with you. Don't let that derail you. But I was just curious about that shit.
No.
You see the correlation when I'm talking about?
Yeah. Look, I think people got too many choices now because back in the day, motherfucker, y'all stayed married no matter what. But what I'm saying is like what you said is that you had somebody to hold down the culture, that hold down that whole family, and you're saying woman. I'm saying both. Back then you had a grandfather. Now the grandfather might have 2 or 3 families, but then on the flip side, grandma had 17 kids, but there was 2 kids in there that didn't look like grandpa, and she would name that nigga Junior. That's how she got that nigga back. She was like, okay, how come Junior light skinned and 6 foot tall, and grandpa, yeah, well, she named him after you, nigga. Don't mean he's yours, but. No, I definitely think that the whole new grandma syndrome is a problem when you have people competing, when you have a lifestyle that doesn't produce, or a lifestyle that's not sustainable. Excuse me. That was a talk that I had with my daughters early on. Like, hey, it's about being sustainable. Well, I want to buy my son Jordans. I'm like, are you gonna be able to buy him Jordans when he turn 8, 9? No, don't start that habit. Like, there's nothing wrong with getting baby stuff trying to get the best for your kid, but the fact of the matter is. Fashion. Yeah.
First of all, they grow like
immediately,
like a wildfire. They grow faster than a virus does. Those shoes, they're gonna be outside. They're gonna get mud and shit on them. Don't get them no nice shoes until they're maybe like 11 years old, because you gotta let them destroy all their clothes. Listen, little kids are the Incredible Hulk. They're the Incredible Hulk until maybe like around 12 years old. They're just destroying everything that's on them and around them.
But hell, the 12-year-old part, what about the growth spurt? What if that little nigga or that little chick hit a growth spurt, and next thing they know that they go from 4'2" to 5'11", 6'3". That shit could happen. So, but that was the point when I said about sustainability.
So you do what my father did at that time. He was like, all right, I know how to deal with this shit. Your ass gonna get a job if you want these fly clothes.
Well, your father was teaching you how to be a man. It had nothing to do with.
I know, like but that was in there though. You got to understand who you was dealing with. That was part of it.
No, he's like, look, there's other kids in the house beside you, so you got to tell like, damn, they make you grown early, don't they? Like, fuck that shit. But so when you have a woman that's not interested in raising, that's another problem that we have nowadays. Is that women think conception makes them a parent. No. It's the same thing when I talked about this on the podcast. Like I'm married now, and one of the things that I had to teach my wife, like having a good idea and raising it ain't the same thing. So I'm like, what do you mean? Conception. You just having an idea is not enough. What makes me a man, what makes me divine is bringing that idea into the physical realm. When you have an idea, then I got to think about, okay, execution, implementation, that kind of shit. That's how a man minds, and not every man, because you got some bitch ass niggas now. But as a man, when a woman comes up with an idea, it's up to us to raise that idea just like you raise a child. Having a kid does not make you a parent. Raising a child makes you a parent, and turning that child into adult. That's why it's called raising, because you're elevating them from childhood into adulthood. These motherfuckers nowadays don't raise their kids. They're simply feeding them and housing them. And so that's another problem that happens when you have a fucked up grandma. All she's doing is feeding you and housing you, but
Now,
she ain't
you
raising you.
multiply that with the food supply has been contaminated.
Bullshit.
And
Yeah,
then
bullshit.
these people are giving you these foods that are essentially poison. Now, they have not taken the time to even think about what they're feeding these kids. And then you have these things that these kids get when they're first born, and they're just giving it to them because these pharmaceutical companies just, tell these doctors, here, just give it to them and tell the parent this. Well, hold on a second. You're giving this kid this shot for hepatitis B. Well, that's for somebody who's partying, doing some crazy wild shit. Why are you giving this to a newborn? There's no point in giving this to the newborn. So all these things are going on. And you have the pharmaceutical industry and big agriculture, and they're putting all these poisons and glyphosate and microplastics into everything.
And don't forget about atrazine in the water supply.
And then you have all these things that are like snowballing into this American experiment that's creating a certain type of person that will go to the ballot box and do as they're told when voting season comes around, by these career liars that are not worried about getting anything done. They're most worried about staying in office.
Hey, slow down. I sent you a video. I called you yesterday. You didn't get a chance to call me back. And one of the things that was bugging me is something that I wanted to bring up. And I didn't want to bring it up on the podcast until we talked before, but fuck it, we're here. So the video I sent you, the guy, he's called like Vince the Plumber. And he's been on a couple different dating shows. He kind of got famous because he's a plumber and he went on the Balloon Pop, right? So he walks out there. He's muscular. He's in shape. But when the girl asked him what he did for a living, he said plumber, and they all popped their balloon. Now, what does that tell you? Most people don't know. Plumbers make over $100,000. Most plumbers make about $200,000 if you're in a big city. But these broke bitches don't know that, right? Well, apparently he was on a dating show about a year ago. And so there's a trans guy on there, and the trans guy does this where...
Is that the one you sent me where they're fighting?
Yeah.
I saw that,
yeah. But so she has a voice like this, but you keep calling me a man, I'm going to let the man out. That right there. How... If you're trans or whatever, if you're trans, why do you get to pick? How come you can go back to being a man whenever you want to? And so, dude said something to the plumber, like, "Hey, well, shit, you wasn't talking that shit when you try to kiss me." Plumber jumps up, swings on him, on the trans person, and the trans person pretty much won the fight. Let's just put it out there.
No, that's not an accurate retelling of what I saw.
I saw it.
The heavy-set, big-boned dude in a wig, basically, lunged forward, swinging. But he didn't win the fight. He just overpowered the guy. You know what I'm saying? With force. That didn't mean he won the fight, though.
Hold it. They got separated. This is television.
And he just basically pushed him into a couch. So that's not the same as like he's on the ground and doing ground and pound.
Hold it. Not relevant. They both were swinging, because the first punch, the plumber got the first punch in and they went back and forth. The bottom line is this: how come you get to pick and choose?
But see, that's when you do the flying knee. That's the importance of a flying knee, right?
That's
there.
Not a fucking knee. Yes. You
must elevate and bring the knee up to the chin and go all the way through and punch through the target with your knee.
Well, look, my point being, so I was cool with this gay dude, and he ended up going to jail for like 3 or 4 weeks. And he was joking with the homegirl, and he was saying, "Yeah, I had to use my boy voice. Hey, motherfucker, give me this." And I'm like, "So you bounce back and forth?" So again, not relevant. It's just the fact that you get to pick and choose. You go back, and that's why you see these guys beating up on women, all kinds of. It's just crazy that women support these trans, but these trans don't support the women. It's really awkward to me. And the fact that a motherfucker could decide, oh, you know what, I'm not going to be a girl for this 35 seconds. I'm going to be a man in this. So it just bugs the shit out of me. And, It's just what it is. How do you get to choose? How you have a boy's voice? It's just
All right, so indigenous women are often regarded as tradition keepers of language and culture. Indigenous throat singing, practiced by the Inuit from Alaska, Kadladit in Greenland, and the Ute in Siberia.
Siberia. Yeah. Hmm.
The art involves two women contesting their abilities with one another. They're battling, the way two African American MCs would challenge each other in a hip hop cipher. This art has its roots from indigenous ancestors and is passed down through generations. The throat singing began with a woman imitating the sounds of geese. Throat singing is a celebration of nature. The songs are a replication of animal sounds and natural elements. However, this practice was lost in history since Christian missionaries banned it around the 19th century. Between 1830 until the 1996 government and churches established residential schools for indigenous children to learn and assimilate the Canadian way of life. Children were separated from their families, culture, and their own names. But the Inuit were notorious hunters and craftsmakers. They used to build shelters and clothing with things that they had available. Still today, traditions of craft making are widely spread within the Inuit community. Indigenous women play a vital role in preserving and transmitting traditional ancestral knowledge within their communities, including the preservation and transmission of native languages and culture. At the International Expert Group meeting on Indigenous languages, experts highlighted the particular role of Indigenous women in keeping languages alive through intergenerational transmission and mother tongue education, emphasizing the importance of their contributions to cultural continuity. A big barrier to learning language is being too afraid to make a mistake, too afraid to embarrass yourself, and worrying that others might think something about you. But you cannot let that stop you from learning. Making mistakes is part of the learning process. Effort is more important than accuracy in this instance. Having access to language and cultural programs, having the reinforcement, visibility that our language is still alive. Our culture has always been alive and helps us on a community level to feel good about our identity and to understand our identity. So if you look at who spends the most time with a child, it's the mother and the grandmother, then the father. Because in these situations, the man is out hunting and gathering or making the money. The mother is around the child, breastfeeding the child, talking to the child, singing to the child, feeding the child. And then the grandmother comes around, and then you have this conversation between these two adults, and then the child is witnessing this. Now, if that child is learning that language from both of those women, then that language or those cultural habits, vines, are maintained.
Well, what people tend to forget, children start learning language before they're born. They hear it while they're in the womb. That's why that's so important. Talking to your child, reading to your child, speaking to your child.
Singing.
Singing. Women do that. And so I think one of the big issues we have is that people don't realize that your child is learning language, recognizing your voice before they're born. That's why that's so important. Also, here's something, when people don't teach this, that, and that, I get all that. But here's something that's very important. I don't think we watch how the dominating class treats other minorities, not realizing that they've done it to all of us. They speak Spanish in Mexico. They speak English in America. Why is that? Because that's the pressure that went down there. So in Mexico, there's like 200 languages that are native to Mexico, other than Spanish ain't native to Mexico. And so the reason I bring that up is because I told you this when it happened. There was a lady that my wife worked with, and we were at the bar with her and her mother. And I thought she was Mexican. She's Native American. Her mother said that, we were put in those schools that you just talked about, and we were beat for speaking our language. I'm like, Spanish? She's like, no. I didn't realize she was Sioux. She's from Great Plains. And so I heard the same thing that happened on the East Coast with the Pokanoket tribe. They said if you were over 13 and you spoke their language out loud, you could be killed immediately. I don't think people understand how harsh the treatment of Native Americans were. And I don't think people understand that they did that everywhere that they went, the dominating class of white folks. So So imagine you get to Mexico. So the Spanish, they take advantage of all these people. They're not even allowed to speak their own language anymore. Same thing. Come over here, the tribes over here. So I think it's really important how important language is to culture. And what Roscoe is telling you, that many languages were lost because these women were forced not to speak a different language and not to take care of their culture. And they're trying. They don't even know how to pronounce certain words. They might find it written down, but that is destroying of a culture. That's a destroying of a people. And like I said, I don't think that we realize that. Well, as black folks, we watch the slave movies and, oh yeah, you teach a slave to read and all this. What they did was they destroyed what was already there to lay something over top of it. And that's what they did by erasing their culture, by destroying their language. But they would take from them whatever they needed. Like when it came to herbs and medical stuff and that stuff, they took what they wanted from them. But they did not give anything back, and they destroyed what was there before. And like I said, we made it past slavery. And that's why I was saying that I think this new grandma thing is so much worse when it comes to not drugs, not poverty, not miseducation. Well, miseducation in the sense that people are, their traditional family idea has been destroyed, and then it's been replaced with reality shows and unreal expectation and rap music and this, that, and that stuff. Really has been used to fuck us up way more than drugs. I don't get me drugs laid a very good foundation of that party lifestyle and raising kids is somebody else's problem kind of thing. I can have them, but I ain't got to deal with them. And that's what we're seeing right now. When your homegirl said like, hey, I thought that this was a different thing. I thought Atlanta was a mecca and I would be here, my kid, this, that, and the other. Like, nah, take your ass back to Detroit. Go back to Motown.
So but here's the thing with that situation. I told her that you need to find your tribe. Your tribe is a composite of different kinds of people. Some of it may be some of the people in your family, and a lot of it may be people who don't have your blood from outside your family. But it doesn't mean that they can't become your family. You know what I'm saying? And actually contribute wealth to your life through positive experiences.
Let's talk black. If a motherfucker fuck with you, they fuck with you. And I'm gonna give an example. So Miss Jackson, you know her grandson. So Miss Jackson was a lady. So my mom is out here. She has me, whatever. My parents get divorced. Well, she becomes best friends with a lady named Shirley. They work together. And so I had a babysitter because my mom was working a lot, was training. And so what happened, Miss Jackson, which is Shirley's mom, was like, hey, just, bring your son over here. I got a bunch of grandkids. He could just be over here. And my mom was like, nah, that's a lot to deal with. So Miss Jackson did not like my babysitter. She drove and got me and brought me over there to her house. And
what was the problem that she had with the babysitter?
I don't know what the problem is. I don't know if there was a problem. She just didn't care for the Miss Jackson just didn't like her. So whatever but that's what I'm saying. When you told this girl to find her tribe, and that's what my mom found her tribe here. You got to remember, I got family on my father's side. I had a cousin on my mother's side, but she moved to California. So my mom didn't have a support system here, not a healthy one. And so she found her tribe. She found it. And like I said, that's why, when Miss Jackson came to my college graduation, come to find out, Miss Jackson was born in Langston. I didn't know. I went to Langston University. So I'm graduating. You were there because y'all even know my brother was at my graduation.
I don't remember seeing her though.
You didn't see them because they were passing through. So I'm walking through the parking lot. They show up. My mom's like, "Hey, Miss Jackson and such and such is here," which was.
I still remember that day.
Yeah, I know you do. So she walked up, gave me some money, gave me a hug. And the homeboy I just told you about, his mom was there. His mom. So all these women came to my graduation. It was for a brief moment. They all the two sisters plus the mother, all gave me a hug, gave me a little bit of money, and they, we're passing through. But when Miss Jackson died, I didn't realize she was born in Oklahoma, but she was born in Langston. So that's the crazy part. I did not know that. But so when you tell her to find her tribe, that's what you're talking about. Somebody who fucks with you will be there for you. You ain't got to look for family. Family finds you. Family will present itself in in a way that you're like, this is undeniable.
The way they present themselves is in adverse situations.
They just pop
Because
up.
what happens in crises, you see who the real ones are. That is the true test of your tribe. Is when
And it's not
shit.
always crisis, but
No,
it's
no,
love.
but I'm saying though, when
It's
shit
real
is
love.
going down, you really see who the real ones are. Now, of course, you know, you don't want to be on hyper crises all the time because you'll be too much to deal with and nobody wants to be around your overly dramatic, hyperbolic ass. No, I'm just saying it's in those moments is when you see who is who.
Look, and like I said, Miss Jackson, rest in peace. But so like I said, I was outside just kicking it. My mom get off work, pick me up, and so. But like I said, when somebody really fucks with you, you ain't got to go looking for them. They'll make themselves known. They'll make it clear who they are to you. Now you might not recognize who the fuck they are, because sometimes our vision is cloudy. Dark side of the forest clouds all. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes because what I mean by that is that we're pursuing somebody else while you got somebody right there willing to do the job correctly, and we don't always see that, and hence why putting babies on layaway is what Roscoe called it. These people were having children, their grandmother, their mother, their aunties, whatever, would step in, help out, and raise them until you were able to raise them yourself. Now, some folks, like, you know what? They wake up when they turn 22, like, hey, man, I just graduated college, or hey, I'm doing this trade. I'm an electrician now, whatever. I'm an operator. For a lot of women became school teachers, and then they came back and got their kid, and all was well. Like, look, grandma had to help me for a while, or they were sending money back home, or they would come get their kid on the weekend, or come get their kid in the summer. So, like I said, it's ways to make it work, but the problem is people have this goal now of partying and like, hey, I can't wait to get these motherfuckers out of the house so I can party. So then your kid fucked up, has a kid, that fucks up your party. You want to go on cruises and shit. You want to go on carnival cruises and fight people and shit.
Party,
bullshit, and throw chairs at people, or jump off boats and shit. Or go to the Caribbean and catch venereal diseases from motherfuckers over there. Like, so.
Right. Like everything overseas is okay to fuck with no protection.
Look, I get it. People keep glorifying the hoe phase, and so I went to get a haircut, and I went to a white barbershop because I was getting shaved, and this white girl broke it down. She said, "Look, my sister failed her hoe phase." I'm like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, if you come back with a kid, you failed the hoe phase."
Where was this?
It was at Sport Clips. It was at a barbershop.
Bro, why?
No, I'm just getting shaved bald. I had to be someplace. And so, but the white girl was talking to me. She said, look, when you get to college, you have your whole phase, whatever, but you're not supposed to come back with a kid. You're supposed to kick it, experience life, realize that to that 2 or 3 year period, then you mature that last year, and you go on about your business, get married, and maybe not, whatever.
Bro, you better not be going to Sport Clips on a regular fucking basis. You're going to lose your hood card forever. Never tell me that shit again.
Okay, so
I don't give a shit how cool we are. Don't tell me this shit.
No. So last time I go get a haircut, I'm at a black barbershop, but of course it's not in the black part of town. And this nigga walked in that I knew, but I don't know if he knew me or not, but he kept staring at me. And the reason we had a problem is because his baby mama used to work with me. Now, she moved on. She's married. So I'm like, does this nigga recognize me? Because he keep looking at me. And I'm like, I hope I don't know if he has a problem.
Did you address it or not?
No, because like I said, we were never friends. We worked together at Hardee's in high school. You understand? But but the chick that he ended up having a kid with worked with me at the railroad. Now, she's married to somebody else. But there was a situation where she was working real late at night one time. And she had called me, and I go to call her back, and that dude picked up the phone. It was just weird. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, hey, tell
that is why she's a horrible new grandma.
No, she's not. She okay.
Bullshit.
Yeah, she's actually not. She got her grandkids, but it was just one of those situations. I'm like, is this dude? Look, is he just recalling?
See, I address shit like that. I don't let it go. I'm like, what's up, man? Like, you eyeballing me and shit, bro. Like, I need to address that shit right away. So I don't walk out the fucking shop and I gotta fucking dodge a bullet.
Yeah, look, I don't care for motherfucker. One, I'm packing heat. I'm cool.
Yeah, but I attack shit head on. Like, I'm not when it comes to shit like that.
Look, like I said, it was enough where I'm like, you know what, fuck this shit, because if I got to kill this motherfucker, I'm killing him. There's not gonna be, yeah, her daughter gonna be upset because I'm gonna kill this. But I digress. Look, the whole point we're trying to make is that these situations can be fixed. But what happens is if everybody wants to party, somebody got to be watching the home front. Back in the day, you had 10, 15% partying. Now you got 85% partying and 15% parroting. That's the fucking problem. And we got to change that dynamic. We got to get it back to at least 50%, nigga. But right now, if you got 85%, if everybody wanted to party, everybody want to go through their whole phase, bitches be 46 talking about a whole phase.
But see, here's the thing, though. Back in the day, people would have parties at their house. So people wouldn't be out in the street partying. They would just have a party at their house.
They kick it,
and you would see your parents or your grandparents, having drinks or playing cards with friends. And then you had this kind of extended, sense of community in a way. But listen, all this is about these old assholes out here trying to run these streets. Okay? They are adopting these lifestyles that are created in this purposeful demoralization campaign that is trying to destroy society. So these new grandmas, tighten it up, because you are the ones that are guiding the future. Look, that's all I got. We out. Peace.
Holla back.